Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
I didn't hate Tiana's Bayou adventure. I certainly didn't love it, but it wasn't the stinker I thought it was going to be. And the reason so many of us thought it would be bad is because of the monumental disadvantage it started with. That being, most of us are going in with opinions already biased against it. 1, it took the place of an icon. 2, the first details released about it looked lackluster. And 3, Princess and the Frog? Really? Actually, let's start there because the correlation to the movie was my first impression. The Princess and the Frog has always been an alright movie for me, but I gave it a rewatch in preparation for the new ride. And honestly, I forgot how much of that classic Disney was packed into this film. By the time the end credits rolled, I can say there was some sort of newfound intrigue for the ride. The movie has the fairy tale aspect, a Disney villain with actual motives, and a fun spin on what a Disney princess could be. None of that is in the ride, which, you know, it's not important, not like the movie's titled after it or anything. Well, there is the Bayou adventure aspect. Thank you, Disney Plus, for the clarification. But all in all, I'm glad I got that memory refresh on the story and the characters because then I could take in more of the details spread throughout the queue. But story-wise, the abnormal transforming into a frog, deal with the devil, magical storybook aspect is missing. Well, the transforming into a frog isn't quite missing, just not the way you'd expect. I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest Princess and the Frog fan and the ride is terrible because it's not a ride through of the movie. I can imagine there's some big expectations, wanting to recapture those emotions from the movie, but that's not really what's going on here. Some of the story beats went completely over my head first time around. I've ridden it twice now, and I'm thankful for that second ride because my first time, I had my face buried in my camera getting some of those shots you're seeing now. The second time around, I used to take everything in, and funny enough, I liked it less. Maybe there's some bias against it there because it was down for parts of the day, then broke when I got on, and some animatronics weren't working. So if you're wondering why some of the footage doesn't have water going or people on the ride, yeah, this thing breaks down a lot. But like I was saying, the biggest con with this ride is that you go in with a sour taste because it replaced Splash Mountain. Like many others, Splash Mountain was a very sentimental ride for me and my family, a big anchor of nostalgia. It was the first Disney ride I brought my girlfriend on all those years ago. But looking at it like that only makes it easier to beat up on Tiana's. We have to remember, it's not completely gone. I could still feel Splash Mountain's soul lingering around. It's not completely dead. It was just transformed into a frog. The essence of Splash Mountain is still there, just in a different body. And for the sake of giving Tiana's a fair review, let's get this out of the way. One of the opinions I overheard after my first ride is something I really can't say any better. If Tiana's was built ground up, it would be one of the greatest things Disney has ever done. But because it's a retheme, the general opinion is, it's alright. Yeah, frankly, a lot of what's good about Tiana's is reused from Splash Mountain. They didn't lessen it or improve it, they just put a swampy bayou spin on it. They even went as far as keeping the same signage, but putting a Princess and the Frog font on it. And while it's good to recapture some of that Splash nostalgia, just altering what was already there is a big no-no for a ride that needs to find its own voice. I'm glad it didn't take 5+ years on this project. The quick turnaround time is an added bonus, but I don't think they gave it enough time to change it so it could find its own identity. Because of that, good ride or not, it will always live in Splash Mountain's shadow. In 10 years, that take could be completely thrown out the window. A lot of people are now going to be riding Tiana's without ever riding Splash Mountain. From that point of view, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is nothing short of awesome. It's subjective, and that's why I think there's going to be people who love it and people who don't, especially with the ride being so new. Now that's out of the way, I'm gonna try to only bring up Splash Mountain if I feel I need to. I don't see it fair to judge the ride we have off its predecessor. Alright, the storyline is kinda meh. But when I say that out loud, it kind of feels like I'm whining a little bit because it's such a minor complaint. If we're seeing it on a timeline and Tiana's Bayou Adventure is the sequel to the film, it feels like a natural way to take it. A few years have passed and Tiana's palace is doing great. She makes sure her father is honored in the way he should be. There's hints about how Naveen is helping Tiana with her dream. Lewis is a musician, yada yada yada. There's a lot of care that went into staying true to the characters, especially in the queue. And from that, I ended up liking the story more than I thought. The Tiana's food thing was definitely a big contributor to why I went in with low expectations, but that turned out to be more of an aesthetic than part of the story. I could see how it may have had a bigger role in one of the first drafts and may have been cut out somewhere down the line. Story-driven rides nowadays really sell you on that wow factor. Rise of the Resistance, for example, is all about putting you in the middle of the action and being a part of that mission. Tiana's does the same thing, but takes it slower. It's not selling you on escaping an enemy ship or saving the universe. It's simply put in the name, a Bayou adventure. It's not trying too hard to be its own thing, but it's also not a ride through of the movie. It's in that sweet spot that I can only describe by saying it's like riding the movie's epilogue. And for that reason, if they had to do a Splash Mountain retheme, The Princess and the Frog was the right choice. But with that said, I think we got lucky, because if Splash Mountain didn't exist, I don't think Disney would have had the balls to build this ride. What I mean is I don't think they would have built a ride of this scale and have themed it to The Princess and the Frog, which kinda makes this outcome more one of a kind than we can appreciate at this moment. Take this for example. For a while there was a rumor that a Moana themed log flume would go to Animal Kingdom. They weren't planning on theming it to Tarzan or the Jungle Book, which would have been cool, but because they'd be spending a ton of money on building the entire ride ground up rather than reusing an existing structure, they opt to theme it to Moana, which doesn't fit as well into Animal Kingdom, but would be a safer bet on their investment. When Tiana's was announced, I was immediately like, why didn't they theme it to something like Moana? But after riding it, I can appreciate them giving an albeit lesser Disney movie, in comparison to the big IPs they've been building at the parks, a chance at a big attraction. Now that they're gonna have to build the next one ground up, I don't see them doing something like this again. Unless they go and retheme Tower of Terror to Hunchback, or El Rio de Tempo to the Three Caballeros. No, wait. Realistically, if Magic Kingdom wanted a Tiana ride and retheming Splash wasn't an option, we would have got something like Navi River Journey in the back of Fantasyland. Let's not take for granted what we have. So what do we have? We have a solid 6 out of 10. 10 out of 10 in the animatronics department. I'd say the animatronics are like the newest iPhone. They've gotten so good there's not much to improve upon. With how much attention was put into the movement and the amount of animatronics on the ride, I hope we can see that same thing come to other upcoming rides at the resort, as well as upgrading rides that might need it, like Cosmic Rewind is begging for an animatronic. My biggest gripe story-wise is it's not fulfilling. It's just enough. Essentially, Tiana and Naveen are having a celebration at their house and everyone is invited. So you do what anyone would do when you get a party invite. You hop in a log and float down the bayou. It's fine because it's innocent. It feels like they're playing it safe. But it would have benefited if it was spiced up a little more. For instance, we're going down the bayou. We'll need a tour guide, right? First alteration. Tiana will transform into a frog to guide us down the bayou. On the second lift, we could have seen Tiana transform into a frog using the same effect like something on the Beauty and the Beast ride when the Beast transforms into the prince. That effect alone would have gone the extra mile to differentiate itself from its predecessor, but in a way, also revisiting themes from the movie brought back in a new and exciting way. And even if you don't like The Princess and the Frog, you see that effect and think it's pretty cool. There's two moments on ride I want to point out. One's a high and the other is a low. Earlier I teased someone would get transformed down to the size of a frog. Okay, Mama Odie uses her magic to transform us down to the size of a frog. and it makes for one of the most disappointing parts of the ride. This scene is not the same quality as other parts, and it comes with one of the worst screens I have ever seen. And on my first ride, I completely missed the fact that we were supposed to be the size of a frog. So you could imagine my confusion when I saw this screen and wondered, why is Tiana so big? I go to theme parks for theme. If I wanted a screen, I would go to the closest theater. If a screen isn't aiding a physical set, keep it out of here. -5 points. When I learned the true meaning behind this scene, I was like, oh, so it wouldn't have broken continuity to have Tiana transform into a frog and guide us around the bayou. The whole scene comes very abrupt, it's wacky and cartoonish. Let's reimagine this scene. When we first get on the ride, we're warned of the dark side of the bayou, where evil creatures and spirits loom. When we reach the point where Mama Odie transforms us down to frog size, something else happens. A familiar spirit lurking in the dark side of the bayou sabotages our adventure to bring us closer to his voodoo grasp. The Shadow Man himself, Dr. 𝐒𝐔𝐬𝐿. Oh my gosh, let me look this up.
We are looking at how to pronounce the name of this character from the Princess and the Frog Disney movie. For reference in French, it is said as Dr. 𝐒𝐒𝐿.
The Shadow Man himself, Dr. 𝐒𝐒𝐿. We drop and emerge into the dark side of the bayou. We're lost and taunted by his intent. He'll do anything to escape the spirit realm and unite with his physical form. But then Tiana sees a way out, a light at the end of the tunnel. We begin to climb. In order to escape 𝐒𝐒𝐿, I am sorry about that pronunciation, we plunge 50 feet.
Oh wow, that was wetter than I remember.
The other scene I wanted to mention, I'm gonna put a spoiler warning because I think it's pretty cool. I was very content with the final scene, to say the least. I don't know if that's a hot take. I know some people loved the steamboat scene on Splash, but seeing this, my first thought was, this was like something they would build in Asia. If you know me, you know how I love to complain about Americans settling for mediocrity while the Asian parks are pushing the boundaries. And I'm happy to say this scene is a step in the right direction. It's packed with a ton of beautiful animatronics and beautiful set design, but there's a screen, and because of that, -5 points. I don't make the rules, but this scene has the only Naveen animatronic, so +5 points. In the end, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is certified sorta splashy, coming in with a solid 6 out of 10 baguettes. Yeah, it wasn't by any means the poor Tiana Splash Mountain overlay I thought it was gonna be. But because so much of its identity came from its predecessor, I can't help but feel like a lot of that work was already done ahead of time. And because of that, I have to say, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is it's almost there. If you liked the video, feel free to check out these ones here, and consider subscribing so we can band together to make sure Tower of Terror is never rethemed to Hunchback. Actually, I don't know. Hellfire in the drop sequence would go kinda hard. Alright, that's it. Goodbye.